In this video I want to discuss what different options we have with variables. Go ahead and launch Macro Express. From here I'm going to create a new macro, however you can edit an existing one if you would like. I'm going to right click on this white area located in the right task pane and click New Macro. From here I can specify a hotkey, which I'll use Ctrl-Alt-A, and click Scripting Editor. Now, just so that we don't forget, it's a good thing to go to the properties and put a nickname in, such as variables or something like that, and go back to script, just so that you can remember what script it was in the Macro Explorer. Now let's go ahead and specify a new variable by clicking Variables and selecting Variable Set String, which we'll discuss first. Our next option is prompt for value. This will ask the end user or whoever's running the macro to please enter some text. So we can say, please enter some text or numbers. Okay, from here we have a couple other options. Mask input allows us to mask what the user is putting in. The prompt always on top means that the window that says please enter some text or numbers, which is asking for the text string variable, will always be on top until the user inputs some information. And last but not least, the store cancel, if canceled, means that if the user selects cancel rather than typing in a text string, it will display cancel in that variable rather than aborting the macro. Now we can also choose where we want this box to be located on the screen by clicking Set Manually. We can specify an absolute position by using these arrows, or in the center, and clicking Save. If you notice, the left and the top will display where that box is located. Next is the Set Value from Clipboard. This allows us to get the information for whatever the clipboard is currently containing. So what that means is if I were to open Notepad by going Start Programs Accessories Notepad and typing in the quick red fox and selecting that and pressing copy, that means that the information that I just copied will be specified in the set value from clipboard. The set value from file allows us to type in a file name and get information from that file. I'm not actually going to discuss this anymore in this video as it falls outside of the scope. If you do want more information on this, please review the book. Our next option is set value to topmost program name. That means that whatever program name is on top, such as if Macro Express is launched by the macex.exe file, that would be the program name. After that, we have the set value to topmost window title, which means that whatever window seems to be on top at the time, we'll select that window title for the variable. The set value to current folder name means that if we have a folder open, it will set the string to that folder name. The set value from any file means that we can create an ini file and store information in that ini. So what is an ini file exactly? Well, it's best looked at as a set of commands or instructions for an application. It allows us to store variables in an actual file rather than in this macro. And this I will give you an example of. We first need to open Notepad by going Start Programs Accessories Notepad. And what it refers to as the section, I'm going to shrink my notepad down here, is by putting a bracket and putting a name of something. And this is referred as the section name. So if we just type in section space 1 and then close bracket, and then we specify a key by typing something is equal to whatever we want it to be equal to. So, for example, key 1 is equal to the letter A. And we can also type in more, of course, sections, such as section 2 and by typing in more keys, key 2 equals C, key 3 equals D. And these can be strings, keep in mind. The key 3, for example, could be hello there. So our next step is to save this notepad as an ini file. Let's click save, and I'm going to save this on my C drive, and I'm going to name it ini example, and then I need to put the extension .ini so that it doesn't save as the type .txt, and press save. I'm going to now minimize Macro Express and go into my computer, go into C drive, and we locate the ini example. Now it has a different icon. It also says configuration settings. Now no matter what Windows you use, you should see something similar to this icon and your name saying this. Let's go ahead and close out of C drive and return back into Macro Express. We first need to specify a file name, so let's click these 3 dots to locate a file. It's already appearing at my C drive, so I'm going to select ini example, and you'll notice that this file name now fills in this box. Our section name is referring to which section that we wanted to pull that information out. Now if you remember, I had section 2 or section 1. I also had the key names, which is why I left this open, just to make sure that we type this in correct. Section 2 must match the section name, and the key name must match what I specify in this box, which is key 3. Or I could use key 2 or key 1. The key name can be actually anything that you want. It just is to help you reference back to that ini file. Let's go ahead and press OK and run the macro. Well, nothing actually happened because we have the variable set string, but we don't have anything to show the end user. So what we can do from here is select the dialogues command so that it's opened up and select text box display. Now one nice thing about variables is you can use them in multiple places and multiple times. So the box header, let's say we want to say this is variable, and then we can put like a slash and put %t1%. And we can also type that in the box content. You chose the following variable. And then put %t1 again and press OK. Let's go ahead and run this macro, and hopefully we'll get the results that we want to see by pressing play. Well, we got exactly what we want because this is variable hello there, which we specified hello there under key 3, and then it also tells us the information that I typed in for the box content. So that's how you use a ini file in a variable. Let's go ahead and press OK and return back into our variable set string. The next option is set value from environmental variable. An environmental variable allows us to specify information from the operating system. We have several different options: path, temporary path, Windows path, which would be like C drive Windows, or the system path, which would be something to the extent of C drive Windows System 32. For more information on those, please review the book. Our next option is set value to file name. And this will prompt the end user or the person running the macro for a file to locate. And I'll do an example of this. Title bar, let's just type in select a file and click OK. If we press play, you'll see select a file, and then it's going to ask us which file that we want to select. If we select like MACEXP, for example, it will then say this is variable C drive program files macro express, and actually we can see the full path here. It will display that full path to that file that we selected. So this might be helpful if you want to ask the user what file they would like to open in a macro, because then we can get the text string so that when we actually design a macro to open an application, we can tell it to open that specific file. Let's go ahead and go back into variable set string. Now the folder name works pretty much the same way as the file name, but it's going to ask us to select a folder rather than a file. So our last option is set with a random letter, and this allows Macro Express just to simply select a letter in the alphabet to use. Let's go ahead and press OK because we're going to use an example of this. If we press play again, you remember that we have this display a text box still located in here. So this is variable %t1. If we press play now, you'll see that it selected the variable z. If we run it yet again, it'll select a different variable, maybe selecting the letter T. So it should be random for the most part, as the Windows application actually will select a random letter for you to use. Just for simplicity, I'm going to go ahead and delete this variable set string so that we can use the variable set integer. You can leave it there if you want, but just to make it more simplistic. Under the commands, let's go under variables and variables set integer by double clicking. My first option is the set value now. This will just allow us to type in an initial value that we want this variable to be. The prompt for value will ask the end user what they want to type in. And we have, of course, some more options on the prompt for value. So if we type in please enter an integer, we can mask the input that they enter. We can have it prompt so that it will always be on top until the user types something in, or we can press store 0 if canceled, which means if the end user presses cancel, the macro won't abort. It will simply put 0 in for the integer variable. And I need to bring this up a little bit so I can press OK. As you may recall, you need to specify a variable before you can actually use it. So we need to put this before the text box display, and how I did that was pressed Control and the up arrow. Next, let's go into the text box display. I'm going to leave the first part of the box header, but change this last part. In fact, I'm even going to leave the percentage signs because those stay the same. I'm simply going to change the T1 to N1, or I could even just change the T to N rather than typing in the 1 again. So let's go ahead and press OK. And if we run this macro, you'll notice that it asks us to enter an integer, starting with the number 0. If I press cancel, it'll say the variables has been aborted. And the reason for this is because in my variable set integer, I didn't say store 0 if canceled. So let's go ahead and select that, press OK, and run the macro once more. If I press cancel again, you'll notice that it set my variable to 0. The next option, set value from mouse X and set value from mouse Y positions, means that I can set my integer from where the mouse is currently located on the screen. My X runs this way and my Y runs this way, same as a graph. The next option is set value from the size of a file. What this means is we can specify a file name, such as my any example file, and when we press OK, it's going to set N1 to whatever file size that any file is, which is 60 bytes. Let's go ahead and press OK and go back into the variable set integer. The next option is set a random value, and this will allow us to specify a random value for the integer, and we can actually set the maximum that we want that random value to go up to. So if we say 500, it can be anywhere from 0 to 500. The set value from screen width and height will pull the information from the computer that the macro is running on of how many pixels by how many pixels they're using. In this example, this screen is 800 by 600 pixels. So if we select set value from screen height and we press play again, you'll notice that it returns to me 800. Press OK and go back into the variable set integer. Okay, the next options have to do with the window that is currently on top. Selecting the top of the window to put as the integer, or the window left, or the window width, or the window height. And that will just pull that information depending on whichever window you currently have running on top. So that covers these four. The next option is set value from clipboard. And this works the same way as a string, but it will only allow you to specify an integer as part of that clipboard. Which means if I open up Start, Programs, Accessories, Notepad, and I type in something to the extent of AD42, and I select this whole part of this text, press copy, and I run the macro, it's going to return 0. But if I go back into my notepad and I only select the 42 and press Control-C for copy and run my macro again, it will display the 42. So what that means is the variable set integer from clipboard will only allow you to select a number from that clipboard. If the clipboard contains text as well, it will automatically be set to 0. Our next one is get length of a text variable. If we specified for T1 the quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog, it would find out how many characters we used in that text variable, T1. Okay, the last option allows us to get a position of text in the text variable, which means it will search text variable %T1 for the following word. And let's type for the search text A. Now, in order to fully see this work, we need to press OK and also put in a variable set string. And if you can't find the variable set string, it's under the commands and it's under variables. Okay, so for our initial value, we're going to type in this is a test and press OK. Now this set string has appeared at the very end, but this set string must appear before this N1. Why? Because this N1 it has to pull the information from T1. In a real life experience, you have to make a cookie before you can start eating it, or you have to put the ingredients in for the cookie batter before you can actually make the cookie. Well, that's what we need to do here as well. We need to put T1 first by pressing Control and the arrow up key. Okay, so let's recap here. Variable set string %T1. This is a test. Variable set integer N1 to the position of text in variable T1. And let's double click on this variable set integer again, and we're searching the text for A. So if we run this now, it's going to return the location of that letter A. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is a space, 6I, 7S, 8, space, 9A, and press OK. Let's go ahead and go back into the variable set integer and go under option 2. Option 2 allows us to specify some more information. If we want to set the value of, say, the variable N1 to the current day, we can do that, the current month, the current year, day of week, the hour, minute, second, which will pull the information off your time clock, usually located down in the system toolbar, the set value from Control left, which we're not really going to discuss in this video because it falls outside of the scope, and set Control top, width, height, and the set value from monitor width or the set value from monitor height. Now the last two options, the set monitor width and set monitor height, are actually new to Macro Express. What this will do is if you have multiple monitors, this will pull the width of each monitor. So if you have one monitor, you would specify 0. If you have two monitors, you would specify 1. And if you have 3 monitors, you would specify 2. And so on. And that is how we use set integer variables. Last but not least is variable set decimal. Set decimal variables allows us to set these variables from a value that we want to type in beforehand. And the decimal, the only difference between the decimal and the integer is that you can type in a decimal, such as 5.45. The prompt for now will ask the end user to please enter a decimal, for example, or whatever you want to type in for the prompt text. And we have some other options here with mask input, which will mask whatever the user or the person running the macro is typing in, or the prompt always on top, which means the prompt will stay on top until some information is given, such as the number or a decimal. And the store 0, if canceled, is if the user clicks the cancel button to the dialog instead of ending the macro. And finally, set from clipboard allows us to set that decimal from a clipboard. And the same thing applies as the variable set integer. If you have some text in your clipboard at the time, it will set the decimal to a 0, whereas if you have, like, say 42 or 42.56, it will set that decimal to 42.56 if that's the only thing selected and copied to the clipboard. Okay, so I went ahead and copied this to my clipboard by using Control-C. I'm going to go back into Macro Express, and I need to delete these other two variable set string and set integer. I'm also going to move the variable set decimal up above the text box display because we need to declare the variable before we can actually display the variable. Let's go ahead and go back into text box display, and this time we're going to change the N with a D as well as a D in the box content. Press OK. And if we press play again, you'll notice that this says this is variable and then 42.56. You can choose the following variable, 42.56. And the reason why was because I selected that text and it was copied to the clipboard. Now there is one more set of variables that I'm going to mention but not cover in this video, and that set is variable set control text. This allows us to use C1 through C99. And I'm going to press cancel on that. So this concludes our initializing the variables tutorial. I'm going to go ahead and close this out, and you can save changes if you'd like. I'm going to go ahead and do that, and close out my notepad. Thanks for watching.